Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here.
With Sandy Stewart sitting in for Barnett Bain.
Yes, you are. We had so much fun last time we did this.
It was great.
And I. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah.
So before we get started, I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. That's the folks at Hierophant Publishing, Hampton Roads Publishing, and Insight Events USA. They make this show possible, so we're always grateful to them. Lots going on. Barnett's not here, which deserves a little explanation.
Yeah.
I know the book came out this last week and is off to a crazy blazing start.
Yeah, it's great. He's up in Toronto, which we can talk about in a minute, but he went into the major bookstore there to buy his book and discovered that it sold out the first day.
Well, I heard it was #1 on Amazon in the psychology.
Yeah, #1 new release in the psychology.
New release, that's right. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's getting great reviews already. So
yeah, and then he's also filming we've all been waiting for the Milton Secret movie, of course, based on the book by Eckhart Tolle, with Donald Sutherland as the lead.
Yes,
that is
very
so
exciting.
Cool.
So he's up there now working on that.
That's so cool. Yeah. How are you handling the mayhem? I mean, folks don't know, but you've got a couple layers going on. Obviously, you've been busy. You teach in Italy. The
IBP psychotherapy. Yeah. How I've been handling it. Well, first, I've been doing a lot of that, and it's really interesting. It's very interesting when the difference between anticipating something, dreaming about it, feeling into it in your body, and then having it. You know, when you dream about it, and lots of dreams are coming true, and there's a lot of change, which
success
is great.
Crisis.
Crisis of success.
Crisis.
Because when you dream about it, there's no responsibility. You don't have to show up in any way. It's really easy. And then it shows up, then it happens, and I have to show up in a new way to meet it. And a lot of what I'm doing is planning for the future because there's a lot of change going on in our lives right now, just logistically.
I mean, you guys are moving, all kinds of other things are happening.
And he's there for 3 months, and I'm going to Italy and going there, and our daughter found her birth father, so we're off to Texas to meet him. It's like everything sort of converged at the same, wonderful things at the same time. But how to stay present in the moment when my executive function brain is in high activity because there's just a lot of logistics to take care of.
And also the triggered element of, the less than high functioning brain, our reactive mind, because there's
change
of chaos.
Change and chaos.
Hey, we've got an excellent guest today.
I know. I'm so excited.
How fun is this going to be?
This is perfect. This is just what I need today.
I know. So our guest today is Marc Allen, who is the author of several books, including the Tantra for the West. This is Sandy's holding this up for the camera for those of you who watch on YouTube. He also has written The Magical Path, The Greatest Secret of All, Visionary Business, and others. He is an internationally renowned seminar leader, entrepreneur, author, and composer. He co-founded New World Library with Shakti Gawain and has guided the company as president and publisher from a small startup to its current position as a major player in the independent publishing world. And he's here with us today. Hey, Marc, how are you?
Fine. Hey, Freeman and Sandi, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so this, getting what you sort of wanted and dreamed and planned for all coming at once, which Sandy and Barnett are in the middle of, it seems to me you are the perfect guy to call in for this topic.
I do. It's wonderful. I do remember the first time I actually got a big fat bonus, which I had visualized for 5 years. It took some doing before it actually happened for my publishing company. And I remember the feeling was slightly, when I stared at that check, I had seen it so clearly in my mind that it wasn't as exciting as I thought it'd be because I've already been there and done that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, and there's a piece of this puzzle, it's some people in baseball, the curse of the cover of Sports Illustrated, right? The pitcher that has the great year gets on the cover and the next year completely flops. Or anyone who's arrived at a point that they've dreamed about. I, at one time, was an actor and got a big gig on a show and then got really depressed, like, is this it? You know, because there was so much that I had put onto a particular expression, right, a particular outcome, let's say.
Right.
And then the outcome wasn't it. I mean, at least not the way I sort of imagined it.
Right. But I know you both dropped in there the total solution to all of that is, as Eckhart keeps telling us,
yes.
You know, keep coming back to the present moment, be here now, embrace what is. This moment now is amazing and miraculous, whatever it may be.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
and I do think I add something to Eckhart's teachings in my books, and I always have. Like, he's so wonderful. He always keeps saying the same thing, and it is the solution. It's pure Zen in a way. It's just be here now, this moment. That's wonderful. But then, also, it is wonderful to dream, and to dream vividly, and to really see what you really want, and create the life of your dreams very clearly in your mind.
I think also what I'm experiencing is when I'm creating the dreams in my mind, I'm not yet the person that is holding that dream or can contain that dream. And now I find myself in the position of having the dream and containing it, so it actually feels like my image, my me, has expanded to a place where I can contain it. And when I'm containing it, it's a lot quieter than when I'm the person who can only dream of it.
Ah, yes.
So that's really been up for me the last few days. And just when you were talking about be here now, yesterday I wrote on a piece of paper, and it gave me so much comfort that I put it on little stickies all over the house. I'm okay now. I will be okay then. Because I don't know what then is, and none of us know. I just happen to be in a transition, but all of us are constantly in a transition and not knowing. We just think we know. But the idea that I will be okay then. When I get there, I will be okay just like I'm okay now.
Well, this is a major tool of yours, Mark, right? The idea also of putting into words the way you want to relate to whatever is coming up in a very intentional, in the affirmation, perspective, right?
Right. What Sandi did is exactly something I talk about a lot in all my books, but Tantra for the West and The Magical Path, I really hone in on that power of affirmations. And Sandi, that's a great affirmation. It's simple and powerful. I'm okay now. I'll be okay then. That's wonderful.
It really gave me comfort. I could feel that in my body, and it helped me stay in the now. It really helped me stay in the now. One of the things I loved from your book too, Mark, is just the definition of Tantra, which is so different than most of us think of it. You know, over the years, Barnett and I went to a lot of Tantra workshops, and they were only all about sex and nothing else, which was great fun. Yeah. But that Tantra is the awareness that every moment is a direct path to love, freedom, fulfillment, and enlightenment.
Yes.
Every moment. So that also gives me a lot of comfort, I must say.
Right. It includes sex, but it includes everything else. It includes cleaning up after the dog and, doing the dishes and working and our relationships and everything else. It does kind of crack me up that in the West, almost everyone who has heard of the word Tantra or uses it thinks it's about sex with some kind of mystical element or some kind of sex as a spiritual path, which is a wonderful path. It's a wonderful. Sex is a great activity and does blow our minds into a wonderful spiritual dimension for a short period of time. And so it's great. But if you go to study Tantra in the East and its roots in Tibetan Tantric Buddhism or Tantra in India, they're talking about something totally different And I spent years studying it. I spent almost 4 years at a Tibetan center in Berkeley. And then before that, about 6 months studying Zen, which is very much tied into it too. And then I spent 4 or 5 years trying to really adapt those teachings to the West. And that's where Tantra for the West came, and that's where I started really translating it into our language. And Tantra, then, if you look at its roots, is really the practice of every moment of our lives rejecting nothing.
It becomes, at least for me, a kind of context, right? So this, I'll call it tantric response, is a way of relating to whatever's going on. And obviously there's a beautiful expression of that in sex, a kind of awareness, a deepening, a moving into maybe a managing of energy and so forth. But the larger perspective, the tantric perspective, is a kind of context for anything, right? Right,
for anything. I spent years pondering what I learned at that Tibetan center, because I needed a long time before I could figure out how to adapt it to my life in modern America. And I remember one story that Tibetan Lama told. He said, we all have this path up the mountain, and the path is covered with poison at points. And in Tibetan, he said, the word for poison is the same as the word for anger, fear, greed, so-called negative emotions, envy, jealousy. They're poison. They believe they literally poison our body. So we're going up the path, our path to awareness, and there's poison there. He said, well, different types of people have different paths. The monk or the nun comes up, sees the poison, and immediately goes in another direction. And that's the perfect path for the monk and the nun. Just go another way. Then the awakening being, the spiritual being, the bodhisattva, he said, comes up the path, sees the poison, and just plows through the poison and on up the path. And that's a wonderful path, too. Then the tantric practitioner comes up the path, sees the poison, and immediately goes off the path into the center of the poison. And I thought about that for a long time. In other words, he means whatever emotion arises, we go into the center of it. We go into the depth of it. That's our path. And that's why it's a direct path. He kept saying, this is the direct path. The quick path.
So beautiful, so beautiful. One of your exercises, I wrote this down because I really want to remember this. The question, what is it about the problem or the poison, as you say, that is teaching me to be free?
Yes.
And I love that, because I always have held, okay, well, I have to go into the negativity and, be with it and be in the paradox and da-da-da-da-da. But that's more of just sort of reluctantly accepting. But to look at it from the point of view of, wow, what freedom is this teaching me about? And it kind of reminds me about what we were talking about this morning, Freeman, with your discussion about religion and your reaction. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, but the freedom on the other side of what is it about this reaction I have that could teach me to be free?
That's it. I mean, it actually comes from a quote from the show with Daryl Anka, where he was on, he said, oh my goodness, I'm going to blow this, but maybe I won't. We'll see. Choose to presume that the challenges are good. Choose to presume that the challenges are good, because challenges are where we grow and learn and so forth. So I think, Mark, it's what you're saying. Instead of, avoiding it, we're moving into it in a way that then, it can be integrated and it isn't the enemy, as it were, and we become more, more real, maybe.
Exactly. One of my favorite phrases in the book is, within our darkest moments are our brightest treasures found.
Beautiful.
And it's true when we look back. It's the most difficult times, even if we've had a dark night of the soul, which most of us have had in some ways. When we look back, something brought us out of that. We came to some realization, or somebody said something, or we're we got out of that, okay, what was that tool? It's all about tools for transformation, you could say, tools for growth. It's all about cutting edge consciousness, What is this new awareness that's emerging?
And what's our edge? What is, because again, it's almost not welcoming, the chaos necessarily, or maybe it is welcoming, I don't know, but at least when it shows up, not denying it's there.
Right. I wrote the book over a period of several years, Tantra for the West, and it started as notes to myself to try to remember what I learned in this study of Tantric Buddhism and adapt it to my life. And one of the very first things is in the book. It's just called Note to Myself, and it's a little poem, and it just says, don't reject the suffering. Don't reject the sadness. Don't reject the sorrow and the pain. Blessed are these things, for through them we grow into true understanding of our way.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it seems trite sometimes to say make a friend of adversity, but I think, at the very least, don't make it the enemy. And if we can find the constructive function of things not going the way we want them to, again, this opportunity for growth, an opportunity for expansion, and honestly, an opportunity for, I'm going to call it genius, because, look, whatever I think I want from my current perspective, the unfolding of it is going to be inherently different, and that's the good news, because if I could see it from here, then it wouldn't be, the growth and expansion wouldn't be happening, because it's limited by what I can presently see. So whatever I think I want, that's great, but the actual arrival of it, the genius of it is always a gift, always got a mystical element to it, right?
Right.
It's that secret you talk about, right?
Yeah, I like that, and I do believe we all have a genius. We all are creative geniuses, and it's why each of us has such a unique, different path. And these different cookie-cutter paths don't fit us because we're absolutely unique geniuses in our own way.
That is so generous. That is so... We're going to take a quick break, but I want to come right back to this, because the premise that there's something important in each of us that wants to be revealed, and there's an excitement in, I wonder how that's going to look, where we can really put down social programming and ideas of who we ought to be that are someone else's, projection. Nothing to do with us necessarily, other than they're our parents or our teachers or, the head of our church or whatever the heck. That, to me, is very generous, even if it's terrifying. So we're going to take a quick break, pay some bills, and then when we get back, we'll pick up right here, because I think this is juicy, and we'll do that after the break.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Hi, this is Sandy Stewart, and I'm here with my co-host Freeman Michaels and our guest Marc Allen. And just before the break, Marc, you began to talk about our individual genius. And Freeman, I know you wanted to pick up on that. Well, your eyes lit up when you heard that.
I think it's generous because, again, so much of us organize around the small menu of possibility for our lives. If we grow up in a household, let's say, where there's a teacher, a lawyer, and a nurse. Well, those are our three options, or other things that are very close to that. And the truth is there's an unfolding that we can't see from that small story perspective that is exciting and rich and so forth. But most of us have been taught to ignore, suppress, or deny that. Right, Marc?
Mm-hmm, right, exactly. I just talked in a high school. I was so honored and glad to be reaching kids at a high school level. And I said to them, every one of you is a creative genius in your own way. And dare to dream what really, really excites you. Don't settle for what your parents settled for. I even said at one point, you can't do what your parents want you to do and be happy. You have to do what you really love and go for it, and you'll never regret it. I loved reaching kids in their teens with that message because we all need to hear it. But the earlier, the better.
Yeah.
And maybe the opposite's true as well. We need to stop asking kids at age 3 and 5 and 7, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, stop that, The truth is, look, the world that we live in whatever you are doing today, you won't be doing it tomorrow. You won't be doing it the same way because everything is moving so fast. So defining, a career when there's going to be whole industries you can't imagine right now. Don't do that,
right.
you know?
Yeah. And it's so different also because I know with our daughter and her friends, for us, we picked one thing and we did it.
That's right.
They're all doing 4 things.
That's right.
And they're unrelated. Like, it's very strange when you ask, what do you do? Well, I do this, and this, and it can be like, I ride in a rodeo, I teach kids this, I da-da-da-da-da, and I host a Saturday night at a hotel,
Right.
So it's crazy. Yeah. It's
I love it.
Yeah. One thing that really amazed me, actually, I got it from Barnett's book. He did some research, and I'm not saying it exactly right, but the idea is that when you test kids before 3, 98% of them score in the genius level at creativity. And when you do the same test 4 years later, it goes down to like 5% in just such a small span of time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So we come in with all this, just like you say, all this creative genius, that just gets squelched, but it's so true. We come in as our core, bright and shiny and light, and then the first thing happens, the family we come into. And
that's why a tantric perspective or context is really, in the past we've called it mature in a sense. It's the ability to very consciously unwind some of the stuff that binds us to this small story of possibility, right?
Yeah, I would say that, right. I think much of the book is overcoming the things that shut us down in family and in school. Here, every little kid comes to school, they're a creative genius, and they sit there in a chair, the teacher's up front, and the unspoken message is, you don't know anything, I know everything, I'll write it on the board and teach you.
And you copy.
You copy me, and you learn, And for reading, writing, arithmetic, that's the way you have to learn it. But at least half the time, the teacher should say to the kids, every one of you is a creative genius. How can I support you in doing what you love? What do you want to do today? And let's do it.
That's why I love Waldorf education, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, it isn't a whole other conversation. It is the fundamental conversation.
Yeah.
Look, part of what I do professionally is I do coaching in businesses. I do a training program with them. And the idea today is that knowledge is not just being passed down, it's being passed up simultaneously. And look, anyone over 40 knows this, that a 10-year-old kid can pick up a device and use it with incredible, aptitude, and we stare at it for hours going, what do I do with that thing?
Right.
So if we're not letting them teach us, we're blowing it. It doesn't mean there isn't something that we have to pass down, and we do, but it's being passed up simultaneously. So the old vertical models, the hierarchy models, are falling apart in substantial ways. So,
it's really interesting. Sophie, our daughter, went to Waldorf school from pre-K to 12th, and all my friends were just appalled because they don't use computers ever. They write everything out by hand with a fountain pen right through 12th grade. And what they do is they learn to take a computer apart and put it back together, but they never use it. And everybody said, well, what is she going to do when she gets to college, And when she was in 12th grade, they let them start doing papers on computers because they knew they were going to college. Well, within 5 minutes, she sat down and she knew how to use the computer because she knew how to think.
That's the key.
She knew how to think, and it wasn't a mystery. Whereas for me, I still can do my 5 things on it, and that's the 5 things I can do. But I actually had a thought when I was looking at your book, Mark, that I wanted to ask you. And I know you have a lot of exercises in your book, but if you could speak personally a little bit. So we're human beings, and when you personally would get up one day on the wrong side of the bed, let's say, or a situation happens and you're kind of losing it. You're losing that beauty of every moment and the gift and freedom from that every moment is giving us. How do you regroup? How do you reintegrate?
I definitely I go off alone. I'm one of these people that goes off alone often, especially if it's an argument with someone or some real struggle with someone. I'll go off alone and really look at that emotion that's arising. What's going on? What's going on? And really get into it deeper and deeper. And that is the first exercise in Tantra for the West. It's just taking whatever emotion is coming up and going into it deeper and deeper. And there's a great Tibetan Tantric teaching that has changed my life. And it's a simple teaching. It's just one concept you get, where the Lama just said, the Tibetan teacher said, everything has its outer, inner, and secret levels of being. So you first study the outer level of anything, including an emotion. Then you get into the inner level. And once you get within it and really get more and more deeply into it, it leads to the secret, the wonderful secret of our existence, which isn't a secret because anyone's trying to keep it a secret. It's a secret because it has to be revealed to us. So even say like frustration, an energy like frustration, an emotion. Okay, the outer, we see the outer thing in our body. Then we get within our body. our stomach's churning and all. Get more deeply into that. What's churning? What's doing that? What is it? Well, it's an energy. Get more deeply into that. What is this energy that's affecting us? Every emotion is an energy. And as we go more and more deeply into it, we realize it's like a thought. It comes and goes. It passes through. And we realize we're a greater organism. We have a conscious awareness, and that leads to the secret. We have this conscious awareness that is ultimately at peace. And all these thoughts and emotions dance across it. They come and go. We're like a deep, deep ocean, and across the surface are all these emotions and thoughts.
And for me, what's very powerful in your work, Marc, and it's your personal story, actually, the solitary piece. And I don't remember your mantra, but it has to do with how you want to relate to life, your family, and how you line up your priorities. Right. In there, woven in there, is relationship with self, the time you spend in solitude. Yes,
I affirm every day. I carry my affirmations with me, and my last affirmation is, my marriage and family life and times alone are filled with grace, ease, and lightness. I simply keep affirming that, and it's very powerful. These affirmations are so powerful. Our subconscious will accept anything, good, bad, ugly, beautiful. So give it good, powerful, expansive things. Tell yourself you're a creative genius. Your subconscious will say, yeah, sure. In fact, then it'll start showing you how creative you are.
Well, and this is the choosing your context again, right? It's coming from, what is it that I'm putting my attention on? What am I committed to creating, or how am I committed to showing up, or something of that nature? For me, I was educated by the Jesuits, and the Jesuits called themselves contemplatives in action. But this contemplative piece, St. Ignatius Loyola, who founded them, had like 35 spiritual practices. Maybe it's 45, I don't remember. But the idea was they were always going back to solitude, to a place where they could sort out within themselves what was right. And then they would take action. And that's very much how I see your affirmation process. There's an introspection, and again, organizing very deliberately, but then obviously taking it into action, because affirmations without action is like delusion. You're not doing anything with it. And a lot of people want to do that. It's sort of mystical, magical thinking. But for you, at least the way I understand your work, it's very deliberate, and then there is action involved.
Yes, definitely. I've often found, even in action, there's a simple, wonderful practice of, if you're talking to someone, if a problem arises or whatever, if you can go off, if you can sleep on it, that's the best. Because amazing things happen when we sleep on it. We've all experienced that. A problem that seems intractable in the afternoon will seem totally resolved in the morning. But if we don't have time for that, just affirming that all is well and taking a deep breath, and then just even letting thought go for a minute as you exhale with one breath, letting those first thoughts that come to mind, that steady stream of thoughts, letting them go for even a few seconds, and then getting calm, and then seeing what arises from a deeper place within. Solutions emerge from a deeper place within you than that conscious mind, that habitual thought that's going.
Yeah, and I think it's so important what you say about the outer and the inner and the secret, because from where I stand, it feels like if you just stay in the outer and then you make an affirmation, you're actually could be affirming the negative if you're not acknowledging and making friends and acquaintances with the negative. So if I just stay on the outer and say I am a perfect human being surrounded in light and love, and I haven't looked at the part of me that is surrounded in dark and ugliness, then that affirmation does not do me any good.
Well, it's the classic spiritual bypass too. You're like, candy coating versus being, again, more real, going into the poison on the path and saying, what the heck is this about?
Right. Yes. By going into that poison, we're acknowledging every part of ourselves, every side. We all have light, and we do have darkness, and we do have pain and suffering. What is that? Where did it come from? Let's get into it. We are all creative geniuses, and we're all neurotic to some degree.
And it all actually is part of the genius.
That is
the pulling the sort of nothing is random. Like there is, at least this is my belief. I don't want to put this on everyone else, but every time I get to the top of the mountain, I call them top of the mountain moments, and they often happen when I'm hiking in some place like Mount Tamalpais, which I know is by you up there in Northern California.
Yeah.
I get to these top of the mountain moments, and it's like I see all these threads, and even they all make sense. Like every little crazy thing I did or didn't do or what happened to me from the top of the mountain, I go, oh.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all been perfect every moment. Me too. I look back, I hit my emotional and physical low right after college in my early 20s, and I had periods of depression and real anxiety, and now I'm so glad I did, because that drove me on my unique path.
Yes.
To spend 6 months at a Zen center. I never would have done that unless I was really pretty unhappy before that.
Yeah.
It was very rigorous.
Choose to presume that the challenges are good. Hey, we need to, unfortunately, Mark, say goodbye, but, we want to have you back. And I will say this, especially if you are in Southern California, because it'd be awesome to have you in studio next time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I get down there occasionally.
Well, next time you do, please let us know. We'll get you in.
Great.
Before we let you go, I want to give folks access to everything you're doing. We, again, want to support this book, Tantra for the West. Both Sandy and I loved it, and all your books. But where can they, get a hold of you for workshops or stuff that you're doing?
MarcAllen.com, MarcAllen.com.
So easy. I love that.
Or NewWorldLibrary.com is my publishing company that has all that stuff, too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging with us today, and we look forward to doing it with you again.
Thank you. My pleasure. Very enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
For those of you listening, we invite you to stay tuned, because Sandy and I will be back after the break to wrap things up here on Cutting Edge Consciousness. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Sandy Stewart.
Hi.
We're back.
That was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the context, that the tantric perspective is a context within which lots of things can fit. And I love how inclusive, Mark is describing this, that, the path, the real path is to embrace even the tricky moments, because that is so much learning and growth in those. And they're critical for our larger genius. Nothing is lost here. Nothing is just... everything fits in some crazy way.
Yeah, the other thing I really liked is reading the book was fabulous, and I got a lot of great stuff from the book. But hearing him and feeling his energy, I could feel the authenticity of what he writes and how he lives. Because he put me in a very calm, kind of present moment place. His voice is very melodic, and I could feel how he is in the present, and that's so attractive. It attracted me to the same energy.
Well, and so look, this is really interesting. I'm going to reveal some behind-the-scenes stuff here at Cutting Edge Consciousness. I reach out to the guest always before the show, just briefly, just to say, hey, here's what we're doing, line it up, and I am struck sometimes at how who I talk to on the phone before they're on air is different than the person on air. It's okay. I'm not making it wrong. I'm just aware of that. He wasn't. He was calm and cool and kind of sweet in the pre-conversation.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I just want to report that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And look, I won't ever name names about who's like sort of different, And you never know, too, what's going on when people are answering their phone. They're not in the state that they're going to be in when they're going to be on the show. But it's fascinating for me to kind of track that.
Yeah. I could feel it. I could really feel it in him.
Yeah. I love the path. I mean, again, what we were talking about with him earlier, where there is some crisis moment, and you're kind of lucky if you can have it early, and find these kinds of tools and, again, a way of working with what's coming in that's constructive, a context, right? A practices context for holding it. Because then everything begins to fit, and what a relief.
Yeah.
Because that anxiety he was talking about in his 20s, which I've experienced in my 20s, but also experienced it later on, that it ought to be different, that I ought to be able to fix this, is just excruciating. And it's not required. I guess it is because it all fits, but I had to do those years pretty much split off from my emotions and from who I was. And the problem I had was that everything I was doing came out really successful in the world. So I was very successful from the outer world. I was very unhappy inside, but it didn't make sense to be unhappy when I was successful. So the only way to be was kind of split off and not really at home in my body or in my experience. And it was only until I had a health crisis at about 58 that I began to realize, wow, life isn't exactly how I experience it. My husband doesn't agree with me because I'm always right. I always thought he just agrees with me because I'm always right. But then I got to see all the layers of the codependency we were doing that had nothing to do with. But I was able to keep that game alive for so many years because on the outside I looked so together and so successful, and it wasn't true. And I had to fall down to become successful and together. I'm raising my hand because a lot of those successful moments where the world was telling me how great I was doing weren't terribly fulfilling internally, and the gratitude that they came apart, right? Again, the acting where I was on a soap opera and things were seemingly going well, or the moment that I had, a bunch of property and a lot of money, and I'm grateful, that wasn't fun.
No.
Those things
it sucks, away. But would you go back to that for a minute?
No.
Never.
No, and it all fits, though. I mean, again, it's interesting because what I'm really enjoying, which is this corporate training, I didn't know that too. Even just a few years ago, if you'd said to me, Freeman, you're going to be doing a women in leadership program with a major bank in Mexico, I would have went, no, not possible. But of course, with Susan Leahy and Gabrielle and others, we're doing this amazing program, and I'm enjoying it so much. But all these things that came from various threads in my life, writing a proposal and then putting together this whole thing, it kind of hurts the back of my brain because it's a real stretch for me to kind of do the paperwork. And I've always said I'm not the paperwork guy. Well, I am, and I'm doing a good job at it, and I'm enjoying it. It's just like it was there, available, and someone had to do it, and I said, okay, I'll do it, And who knew I'd like it so much,
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
That's the great expression in life. Like all those moments where you go, wow, who knew I'd be,
Your soul knew. Somebody knew.
That's it. So
and one thing led you.
Totally.
Yeah.
What wants to be expressed through me? What genius wants to be expressed? And the trick with that is you can't possibly know it. It's always going to be revealed in a kind of gift way because that's the nature of it. It's beyond what what you can presently see.
It's never what it is.
Never.
Barnett and I always, we say this many times a week, and sometimes it's around an argument we're having or a disagreement, and sometimes it's just around life, but the thing is never the thing.
Right.
Like the thing you think it is never the thing. So what's the real thing?
Right. Well, what's interesting about that from the perspective of the unfolding, the sort of magnificence, I get there's a kind of what's the real shadow, like let's dig a little, but there's also this light piece where there are threads, or maybe there are qualities, right, that we're aware of, that we may have experienced in various moments in our lives.
Right.
And I, up until fairly recently, always attached those experiences to the thing I was doing, and say, oh, I like doing this thing, right, this outcome, I like that, or this single expression. What I've really come to, it's not about the expression, it's about the quality. Yes, it's been expressed in these various ways. Right. Performing or whatever, which then I can say, oh, I see why other things have been fulfilling, and I can track the various expressions, but it has nothing to do with the expression. It's the quality of experience.
Yeah. It's the function, not the form.
Yes, and we're so distracted by form.
So distracted by form. How's it going to look? Even what we were talking about earlier with kids at 3 years old. What are you going to be? How are you going to do? What box are you going to put it in?
Right.
And that's all form. Not how do you want to feel when you grow up?
Yes.
Does anybody ask that question?
We've been talking on the show for 5 years about reframing success as a fulfillment orientation, not as an outcome. Like, I don't care what it looks like. What's interesting about that, because there is this way, again, that everything comes along to, right? So I think we have to aim at outcomes, because that's what we can see from here, knowing that it's going to change and be different, So it becomes this balancing act. Because we don't want to overreact and say, well, I don't know what it's going to look like. Well, come up with some ideas or you're going to be in trouble. Aim at something.
Loosely. Hold it loosely.
Loosely. Thank you. Hold it loosely. That's exactly right. That's what I'm thinking.
And when it's loose, you can almost have this image of something wafting in the breeze.
Yes.
And when it's fluid like that, there's room for something to flow in and then other things to flow out.
And even to anticipate that there's going to be something cool that happens here. I don't know what it is. In acting we used to call it indicating. Don't indicate, meaning allow the moment to organically unfold. But you always expect. That's Barnett's thing about have that healthy sense of desire and expectation. And the ability to imagine off of the threads of what's been done before. Right?
Yeah.
So that's something.
Well, you need a path. You need to sort of follow what
we're aiming.
Mark was
you got to aim in some way.
Yeah.
And
it's exciting.
It is exciting.
It is exciting.
It is.
When you can hold the unknown with knowing without certainty.
Knowing without certainty. And embracing the whole ride. I mean, we were talking about this morning at coffee when you and I were hanging out about how much stuff is going on for you, and I reflected our mutual friend Susan Leahy, who I train with, of course, who's now moved to Mexico because she just wanted an adventure and all kinds of other ideas she had about let's try this. And I was talking to her the other day, and she was saying, I can't believe how many layers of complexity are going on. She had a full-on emotional kind of breakdown before she left, and she felt like she was breaking up with friends because she was leaving, and all these layers and layers and layers, and then moments of sheer excitement and dread. And she said, and it's all okay. It's all part of this ride.
So brave. I mean, just thinking of her down there, and just like little things like getting a phone hooked up, as opposed to how it's done here. Every single thing is different.
Right.
And to just be, it's a great. I would think it would be great because it's a place where, when everything is unfamiliar, your ego kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
And you just have to be from your core in this experience, because you don't have all of your stuff that gives you comfort and identity around you, and you're a stranger in this strange place. It's very brave.
Well, and it freaks other people out. Look,
one
of the things she said to me the other day, she says, I'm so sick of people asking me, do I like it? Because she's like, there's things I like, there's things I don't like.
It's like saying, do you like your life today?
Well, it's like saying to a 4-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
It's not a good time to decide that. You've been there for a week. Relax,
Right.
But we do that. Again, we keep organizing back to this small menu.
Wanting certainty. Wanting to know.
I have to decide within 24 hours if I like it or not.
Did I make the right decision?
Yeah, it's horrible. incredible. So she said, please don't ask me if I like it down here. I said, I won't. I got you.
I've been so aware of that too, with like the potential of selling our house, and do we want to move, and do we don't want to move. And when I go into what's the confusion about it, well, there's this idea I want to make the right decision.
Yes.
Well, where did that come from? And what is the right decision? And how could any decision be wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no wrong decision.
Yeah.
Every decision will have things I like and things I don't like. And there'll be complexities. And can I just be with it? But looking for that guarantee that I'm going to make this decision and then I'm going to feel good.
Right. You know? And there's another tyranny to weave into this, which is our incessant storytelling, right? That we want to frame it in a single-dimensional way, right? Versus allowing it to be complex. That's why I love sometimes to speak in terms of part of me. Well, part of me wants to tell the story.
Yeah, but it's true.
You know, and another part of me, you know, so that I can hold. Again, we've kind of defined consciousness as the ability to handle dynamic complexity. Yeah. Dynamic being always change and layers of complexity.
To contain it, just to be able to contain it and be present with it. Yeah. Not have to do what we do to space out, which I must say, 5 episodes on Saturday of Downton Abbey was a way that I was just not dealing with the unknown. Right. But it felt really good for 5 episodes to just split off.
Right. And when you're on the 5th day of that, you go, okay, wait a minute.
It was one day, but 5 episodes. But still, by the end of it, I went, okay, that was enough indulging of not being home. Now it's time to come back.
I'll tell you a little funny story. So, you know, of course, I'm going back and forth to Mexico, and I've always wanted to learn Spanish. I am addictive, like most people, with my device. And so for a while, I had solitaire on it, and then I had to delete that because it was like I was playing solitaire all the time. I'm like, I gotta stop this. And then we started playing Pinochle with a couple friend of ours. So I said, I can practice Pinochle. That's constructive. No, it's not. So so I have this Duolingo, which is an app to learn languages. In this case,
I
Spanish.
need that for Italian.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving it. So
have you been learning?
I look at my tracker because it tells you how much time you've been spending. I'm on for like 30, 40 minutes a day, almost every day. There are some days I miss, but I try to do it every day because look, I'm already doing the distraction thing. Let's make it constructive.
Of course.
Like, let's just acknowledge
rather than reading the same email 6 times.
Exactly. Let's acknowledge that I have this tendency to do this, and let's make it constructive. So I'm digging it. I don't know if my Spanish is getting that much better, but I'm into it. I'm practicing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So I guess if we were to sum things up, not that we have to on this show, we love leaving things open-ended, but I think there is something to say with everything fits, and to the degree we're choosing and navigating from a context, right, that can hold a bigger vision for our lives, there's nothing wrong. Everything can fit. And even that thing that we're calling wrong, the challenge as it were, can we choose to presume that it's good?
Right.
That's a big shift for me personally.
I'm okay now, and I'll be okay then.
That's right. And all there is now. So when the now, the then becomes now,
I'll still be okay. Yeah. When the then becomes now, I'll still be okay.
And what is present in the now is that we're done. So
but once again, it's been great fun.
Awesome fun.
I know. I love doing this.
And for those of you listening, we of course invite you to keep coming back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Thanks for listening.